take a good seat, whatever that is for you. And just take these moments. If you're feeling sluggish, there's a reason. I really believe in the dog days of summer. Sunday we did a whole dog days of summer theme. And it's that time of year when it's so hot, like right now, that even in air conditioning, the heat still becomes oppressive and just rolls me over. So a lot of people have been commenting on how they feel that since my word of the month is torpor. It's just like sort of a lack of ability to get up and moving. So in that sense of torpor, then we look for what's reasonable to expect in terms of how we move. So take these few minutes to consider, scan the physical body. And then the energetic body, the subtle body, the emotional body. It's also deeply connected. It's the more Eastern way to think of the body as a whole system. Our Western approach to medicine has been to isolate and divide and conquer. And that works to some degree. But if we don't honor the fact that our physical body and our energetic body, subtle body, are so connected, then it's difficult to figure out how to optimize our being. And we acknowledge what's going on, what we're feeling, what's happening, rather than judging. Judging's so easy. I do it so quickly. And it's a practice to just notice, to just be in the presence of how you are right this moment. Draw your palms together in front of your heart center. One soft Om to begin practice. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale to Om. Next exhale, release the hands. Flutter the eyes open. So we'll do some Kapalabhati. Carry the Kleenex are there, and I think they're, sorry. And Kapalabhati is so good right now in this heat. Finally, we got rain, so we needed that. There's a little less dust, but there's still just all of these allergens out there at this time of year. So we'll play with this. So first do a single, we'll do alternate Kapalabhati after the first round. First round is regular. So inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale about 2/3 of the way and begin. Inhale. Exhale, blow it all out. Bow forward slightly so you can pull the belly button up and in as you blow all the air out. Hold the inhale out as you sit up. And then gradually, as you're ready, sip the air in and breathe normally. Alternate nostril Kapalabhati, it really starts to get the river of phlegm moving all of the allergens out. So it's the ring finger and the thumb on either side of the nose, more lifting up than closing off. So inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. And inhale, begin, go out the, exhale out the right first. And then exhale through the mouth all the way out. Bow forward slightly so you can pull your belly button up and in. Slowly sit up with the exhale still out. And when you're ready, slowly sip the breath in. One last round, your choice, either regular Kapalabhati or alternate nostril. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale, begin. Inhale, exhale, blow it all out. Pull the belly button up and in as you sit up, and slowly sip the inhale in as you're ready. Breathe normally. So by the third round, you should feel some muscle fatigue or work in the abdominal area, because if you're really releasing the abs and pulling them in sharply with the abdominal muscles, you'll start to feel this. If you're not feeling this, it's probably because you're not making it forceful enough. And sometimes we keep the air here. So it takes a little practice to figure out. I always think of it when my cat's throwing up the hairball. It's, you know, how they kind of do that. And they're actually pumping their abdominals. And that's that same feeling. So I think of it as the hairball. All right, take your ball or massage your hands and start to work it either on the floor or in both hands, but just work the hands quickly. Wake them up and set it aside. Swing around, come to hands and knees. Oh gosh, oh gosh. Groaning is going to be my mantra this morning. It's the groan practice. Okay, spread the fingers, connect with the whole circumference of the palms. Cat-cow, you know the drill, round and arch. Explore the movement of the spine. Make it bigger or smaller as your body is asking. I know I might say, my body's asking to go back to bed. For some reason, when I woke up at 3:30 this morning, I just never really got back to sleep. I usually get back to sleep, but not so much. Nice big stretches. So my body's definitely saying, go back to bed, go back to bed. And I will likely do that after class. But a little movement will help the rest even more. Oh, God, 4:30 class. Tuck the toes of the right foot, slide it back, stretch it out, change sides, press back through the other one to stretch the calf.
And keep alternating, like pedaling out as we do with dog, but this time it's in table pose. The next time the right leg is back, pause. Lift the right leg, stretch the left arm. Oh, big stretch. Elbow to knee. On the exhale, inhale, expand. Continue at your own pace. Exhale as you draw in and contract, pulling the belly button up and in. Inhale, expand, still keeping the core strong, not releasing the belly, but it's not as strong a contraction. And the next time you come into bird dog, pause, release, change sides. Tuck the toes to the left foot, slide it back, lift it up, stretch it out. And continue. Exhale, draw it in. Inhale, expand. Still pay some attention to your standing hand, that it's not collapsing to the outer wrist. Claw the fingers, pressing the base of the index finger, base of the thumb down. And the next time you come into bird dog, release. Widen the knees wide apart, toes together, and come back into child's pose. The knees are quite wide, so there's room for the belly and the chest to come between. Stack your hands and rest your head or on your hands or your arms. And breathe. So I love the stretch from here as you walk the fingertips out, outer shoulder apart, perch up on your fingertips. The head can rest on the floor, or you can always put a block under the head if it feels like your head's hanging too far down and you're getting a little dizzy or finding breath difficult. But walk the fingertips way out away from the body, the knees, and stretch the sits bones back towards your heels. Big, long side stretch. And lifting the head just enough to clear the floor, begin to walk your fingertips just over about halfway of how far you think you can walk over to the left. Slide your left hand back so you can bend the elbow and press the hand into the earth. And that, if you push into your left hand, walk your right fingertips even farther away at a diagonal, then the left hand helps you push the right sit bone back towards the right heel. Should feel a pretty good, strong side body stretch here. Oh, breathe the right ribs. If it's comfortable, you can walk the right hand over to the left a bit more, if that feels good. Again, stretches. My measure for a good stretch, I'm in the right place when I say to myself, I need to do this more. Walk your hands back towards the center and rest for a moment, noticing the difference between the two sides. Take a next inhale, lift the head just enough to clear the floor. Walk over about halfway as far as you think you can go to the right. Slide your right hand back, bend the elbows so the hand can push against the floor to push the left sit bone back towards the left heel. Then walk the left fingertips out. The left palm is lifted, the left elbow is slightly lifted, and the left inner armpit is slightly lifted. It's a kind of impossible contradiction. Oh, and stretch big, breathe the left rib cage. Keep using the right hand to push into the earth to help you keep your sit bone back. Big side breath. And inhale back to center. Notice if you're more even or at least the side body is longer. Inhale your way up to seated. Tuck your toes and torture your toes. Sit on your heels. I know, right? It gets easier. And yes, you can lift your knees. Yep, that's the Mary solution. Not so much there. It's your feet that are killing you, right? Because you're a runner. So this just takes the angle out of the toes a little bit more, but keep the toes as tucked as possible. This is particularly good for you, Carrie, as a runner, because runners' feet get a lot like dancers' feet, ballet dancers' feet. They just become kind of gnarled in some ways. So it's important to keep them for knee health and hip health, to keep them happy. So the more you do this, the less painful it is. Now, this may be where you say, my body's not saying, oh, I should do this more. My body's saying, run for your life. Get out of this. Stretch the arms forward, palms up. Come off the heels a bit. Fingertips point towards the knees. Claw the floor. Bend the elbows, not out, but back towards your knees, back towards your thighs. So micro bend your elbows more, Carrie. Yeah, pull them back. Bigger stretch that way, right? If you lock the elbows, there's a stretch, but it's not as intense as if you bend them. And torture the toes another time and shake the hands. And then turn the palms down. You will not put much weight, if any weight, on the hands, but bend the elbows back towards your hips, not out to the side, pull them back, and stretch the wrist, the top of the wrist, towards the floor. Most likely it'll peel off. This is quite tight. And if you can even get more of the back of the hands on the floor, Carrie. Oh yeah, do you feel the stretch there? That's good, we need it. Come back to toe torture, shake off. All right, wide-legged table, prepare for dog, claw the floor, tuck the toes, lift and walk. Pedal it out. Oh. On your next exhale, walk your hands back to your toes, forward bend at the back of the mat, and do a little micro bend, micro straighten here, just to see how the hamstrings are waking up to this day. And next, inhale, hands on the hips, come up halfway, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, and use the legs to inhale your way up to standing. Rise up, release. Get your ball for the feet and begin to press them out, roll them out, wake them up. So we spent the day on Sunday dedicated to dogs, dog days of summer. We did a lot of different dogs. And I think, was it the Sunday before when it was like, why don't we just stretch? My daughter showed me, she's sending me a t-shirt, a workout t-shirt that says, can we just stretch today? And she works out with a trainer, and there are just days when it's like, oh, just let me stretch. So we did, we just stretched all day, the whole class. Oh no. Yeah. All right, switch sides if you haven't already. Wake up the other foot. Mm. So doing these spiky balls, I always get the bottom of my feet start to itch, like I want to do the other one again. All right, roll it out or fall off of it, whatever you're doing. All right, let's move a little bit. Come to the top of your mat. Place your feet
thoughtfully, fully, completely, and rise up. And pause here for a moment. The legs are strong. Lift all 10 toes, connect with the 4 corners of the feet. Lift your inner arches, lift your outer arches, keep the toes lifted. Hug the shins towards each other as you push the shins, hug the heels towards each other as you push the shins forward, micro bending your knees. Inner thighs move back, then the tailbone pulls it all together down and slightly forward as the legs lengthen and the toes slide along the floor. Open the arms to cactus position, bending at the elbows. Pull down like you're pulling on a lap bar and pull up and out of your hips and curl back from the upper back, not from the lower back. Legs stay strong. Once you let go of the legs, then you've lost your back as well. The back has to take it and the back will complain. And release. Interlace the hands behind the back, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of arm bones, move them back. Micro bend your elbows and hug the elbows to the midline. Lift the arms behind you, and lower. Lift, it's a micro lift. Not a lot of, most of us do not have a lot of, so just breathe and exhale and lift. And the next exhale, bow forward, arms overhead. Inhale halfway up, strengthen the legs, hug them in, and use the legs to press down to rise up. Stretch it up. Release. Make circles one way and then the other. Inhale, rise up. From that foundation of the legs, the feet and the legs, bow forward. Inhale, prepare, right leg back, straight leg lunge. Spin the back foot down. I'm going to turn this way. Spin the back foot down. Walk the arms towards your right. And the sits bones move way out, so it's a funky lunge. The whole back foot is on the floor, but lift the inner arch. The tendency is to roll over the inner arch. So stretch here. And then come back to the hands on either side of the front foot. Strengthen the legs, scissor them in, and with the strength of the legs, rise up. Inhale, full warrior one. Interlace the hands behind the back. This time your second favorite side's fingers on top. So if you're right-handed, we tend to put the right hand on top, but reverse the pull. Strengthen the legs, pull them in, hug them in, and bow forward, lifting the arms overhead. So there's a balancing issue here, so you don't fall smack on the top of your head. The legs have to remain strong. Inhale, use the legs, push the legs apart as you rise up. It gives you more strength. Inhale. And spin it down. Step back, downward facing dog. Step your right leg forward, straight leg lunge. Spin the back foot down about 45 degrees and walk the arms over to the left. So you're at a diagonal. You're not straight out from the hips, perpendicular. You're more at a diagonal. Walk out with the fingertips as the sits bones move back and wide apart. Your legs are both hugging in and pushing out with the same amount of engagement. You're not doing one more than the other. And breathe. Next inhale, hands come on either side of the foot. And again, as you draw the legs together first, inner thighs move back. As the tailbone goes down, that's a way of pushing out. So you're both hugging in and pushing away. Inhale, rise up to full warrior one. Keep off the tendency here is to roll the inner arch towards the floor, lift it up. Interlace the hands behind the back. Now you can put your favorite finger on top, hand on top, and exhale, humble warrior, as though you're trying to kiss your instep, the arch of your front foot. Lift the arms overhead. Using the legs, they're drawing in and pushing out at the same rate as you stand up. Rise up. Release, windmill the arms down. Come into downward facing dog. Rest into child's pose again, knees wide apart, toes together. Pad the knees as you wish. And this time we'll do the twist from, sometimes we do this with puppy with the hips up, but this time you may want a block near you. Thread your right arm underneath you. Come to rest on the outside of the right shoulder. So the wider your knees are apart, the more you have space to get down, toes are together. Then the head rests on the side on a block, or you can rest it on your hands. You don't want it to hang too far down from the shoulders. So resting the head on a block, Carrie, might be, so it's not hanging in midair and that you can relax the neck. This is really good for tight shoulders. And even though the collarbones are starting to move towards the left, rotate your lower ribs and your low belly back to the right. The left arm can do whatever it needs to do. There's a couple of options. It can stretch out straight in front of you, or you can bend the elbow and place the hand on the ground like we did on the other child's stretch. And this way, push the right sit bone back towards the right heel even more. Inhale back to center. Notice the difference between the two sides, and then thread the left arm underneath. And this may be tighter or looser. You might be able to get more of the shoulder down. And there's always an option. If for some reason this is just not an option, you can twist more open where you're up on the forearm. This stretches the outside of the arm, the deltoid, and biceps, triceps. Something we don't think about stretching sometimes. And breathe into it. So as the collarbones and the upper ribs are moving off to the right, the bottom ribs and the low belly is moving back to the left. And then inhale your way back up to center. Come into down dog. A good full stretch and down dog. Walk the feet a little closer. So typically I do a wide dog. There are some yoga styles that they do a shorter dog, but this tends to round the upper back. But because we're going to do a twisty thing. Now claw into the right hand and stretch the left hand back and hold somewhere on the outside of the right leg. Keep the hips level. The tendency is to shift your weight over to the right foot. So shift the weight back on evenly and onto the left foot and begin to twist looking under your arm, your right arm. If you shift the weight too much to the right and give in to that, you'll start to pull the sacrum. You want to keep the top of the pelvis stable and release. Change sides. Claw the floor with the left hand. Reach to the outside of the left leg with the right hand, and notice the tendency to shift all the weight over to the left leg. So redistribute it, pulling, and another way to do that is the low belly keeps pulling to the right as the ribs
Move to the left, looking under your left armpit. Inhale back to center. Release all the way to the floor. We'll come into chameleon, or what is it? What kind of lizard do we call this? I can't remember. Some kind of lizard. Come onto your forearms and draw your left knee up, or pick a knee, just change it. The foot is flexed, and pat it as you need. And pause here. Now, some people feel nothing here. I start to feel a pretty good stretch. It's subtle, but it's a stretch low down in the low right belly, if I give it enough time, but I'm extremely tight, and that's part of the psoas that we're working on. Yeah. And so some people feel nothing here. Yeah, I know, right? It's not a huge, it's like it's a small thing. It's not this big, it's not like stretching the piriformis where you feel it. Just breathe here. If you're not feeling anything, there's always this starts to move into my back. I find that right here. And I also find that if I push out through, tuck the toes of the right foot and push out through the right heel, keeping the right leg more active, and then with the forearms, pull my chest through, I feel an even bigger stretch along the straight leg side. Yeah. And then roll all the way onto your right side. And the knee will come up. The foot's on the floor, but the knee will most likely come up. The bottom leg is straight, or if you're feeling really tippy, the bottom knee can slightly bend. But I find more stretch if the bottom leg is straight, and as though I'm pushing, I'm activating the bottom leg, the straight leg, pushing into an imaginary wall. A real wall works too, but an imaginary wall works as well. The hips are stacked on top of each other. And then the knee gets heavy. The inner top, the bent knee starts to move towards the floor as, again, you're pulling away. So as you're pushing through the straight leg, use your forearm to pull your ribs towards the top of your mat. And then you feel even deeper side stretch here. Relax the neck and jaw. Make sure you're not holding any tension there. And stretch. Release all the way to your belly. And just notice what's stretched. You can windshield wiper the legs if you need a little back release, or you just like to do it. And then come to side B. The other leg comes up. Padding helps. You're working for a right angle at the hip joint, a right angle at the knee joint, and a right angle at the ankle joint. And then up onto your forearms. Push back through the heel, the sole of your straight leg. Lengthen out, and with the forearms, pull the elbows back towards the hips to pull the chest through, to lengthen the stretch on that side. And just notice, if you feel this, like on this side, I tend to go into my back faster. I feel it. So I have to pull the belly button up and in and lengthen the tailbone to the xiphoid, bottom tip of the sternum, then pull the chest through, so that I'm protecting the low back, lengthening the spine. Still get a big stretch there. And then roll all the way to the side. Knee is still in the same position, but the knee is most probably to be up. The straight leg is still working, pushing against a real wall or an imaginary wall. That same action as the foot is pressing against towards an imaginary or real wall,
the front forearm then, your forearm that's down is pulling back towards the hips so you can stretch away from the torso can stretch, the ribs can stretch away from the hips. I'm into side stretches these days because I feel exceptionally tight there. And check to see if you're holding tension in the neck. Sometimes when we're on the side like this, I can find that I'm stressing and holding the neck in a unlikely way, a way that's not pleasant. Roll all the way to your belly. Bend your knees. Reach back, take hold of the top of the feet. The knees will splay apart, most likely if your back is tight. So you let that happen to some degree, but you're moving them in towards the midline, squeezing a real or imaginary block so you don't just pop them out. They don't need to touch. They need to be about hip width apart, but they can be a tiny bit wider. Then shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. So again, reset. Imagine you're pressing your feet on the floor when you're standing. The inner thighs move up towards the ceiling and the tailbone lengthens as you kick the feet back. Then from the core of the pelvis, send the energy out through the knees, up through the feet, and from the core of the pelvis out through the crown of the head. And breathe. And release. Plant your hands, push back into a child's pose. And inhale, sit up onto your heels. So because of who we have here today, I'm going to play with this a bit. So at this time, I like to have a blanket behind me. Even a bolster is nice. And you may want access to another block. So if you kneel on padding, and here the knees are about hip bone width apart, the frontal hip bone as is bones, lift up, take your knuckles and press the calves back, not out, but flatten them back. Gives you a little space. You can put a block under your sits bones, high or low or medium. And then if you reach down and pull the skin of the knees up, like you're just pulling them, you lift the knees a tiny bit, it seems to release some of the tightness. Then see if you can click the baby toe side of your foot on the floor. The tendency is to curl the little toe side away from the floor. See if you can spread the toes and push them down. That makes you work the legs. This may be where you want to stay. You turn and face carry so I don't have to look over my back. Nice manual inner rotation of the thighs always helps to get you more on the frontmost and innermost edge of the sits bones. Then work the feet. So the feet are not on vacation. They're spreading and clicking the toenails down. You may say, this is it for me. I'm fine. I'm feeling plenty of stretch. If you want a little bit more, you can start to go back. This is where I wish I had another block, but you can go back either to lift the hips and come down onto your forearms, or come down on 2 other blocks, or just stretch back. Just stretching back this way, lift the chest. The inner thighs are moving towards the floor, the tailbone's lengthening as you arc up. So this is an option. If it's comfortable for you to go down, it's not, this might work, but not for long. You're still hugging the knees to the midline, even though the farther you go back, the tendency to splay the knees out is strong. We don't want to artificially snap them back together because your hips are saying, I need some space, so the knees are widening. But you can lift here and release. And then we don't do this often. It's a rabbit. You can either keep the block under you or not. But come forward with the knees. It's a child's pose, but the knees are together.
can hold onto your heels. The forehead may or may not come to the floor, or put it on a block, forehead on a block. And then as you lift your hips, you're not putting a lot of weight, if any weight, much at all, on the top of the head, but it's stretching the back body. And inhale your way up. Come to lie on your belly for a half happy baby and a cradle, baby cradle. I know. Let the moaning begin or continue. All right. Pull a leg up, pick a leg. You've only got two. Either hold behind the thigh or come into full half happy baby. Again, your other leg is still working. It's not winging out to the side if you keep the knee bent. Or if you straighten it, you're pressing into a real or an imaginary wall. As you pull the leg down, the top of the thigh is moving towards the floor on the outside of your rib cage. So you're not right on top of your rib cage. You're off to the side a little bit, not a lot, but a bit. And breathe here. Whatever the other leg is doing, straighten or bent, it's still active. It still knows where it is in space. It hasn't just lost consciousness. If the leg is straight, the toes are pointing to the ceiling, stretching through the feet. And come into baby cradle. Then you shovel scoop. So you're holding on the outside of the shin, and the bent leg elbow, the elbow of the bent leg is pressing on the inner thigh as the other hand is pulling the heel towards the opposite shoulder. And see if you can get your low back curve back. And then again, the other leg is still working. Either the leg is bent and the knee straight up, or the leg is straight. And then let's ride the Harley a bit. So draw the bent knee all the way over, the other knee leg comes up, you're bending both knees, heels are down by your hips, hands on top of your knees, the top of your shins, slide your hands down the shin, take hold somewhere on the outside of the shin, flex the feet, and move the knees far enough away from the hips, from the shoulders, so you can get a low back curve. Breathe here a moment, squeeze the knees together, and begin to lift the shins, and notice that the low back wants to press to the floor. So keep a little air under your back waist as you lift your knees. So the idea is that you're pulling the feet towards your shoulders as the knees are moving away from the chest. The back long, engaged, shoulders relaxed and back onto the floor. The neck, jaw, chin are neutral. Release the hands, stretch the arms out in a T position, and whatever is your top leg, you're moving to the opposite side. So in my case, my top leg is the right leg. I'll drop the leg unit over to the left. The arm can drape over the legs to help pull them down. And then the rib cage is rotating away from the legs. Good deep twist. And inhale your way back to center. Stretch out long and notice the difference between the two sides. Side B, go through it all again. Half happy baby. Pull it up a little bit to the outside of the rib cage. Essentially, you're looking for a right angle at the knee joint, a right angle at the ankle, like you're in lunge. And as you pull the top of the thigh down towards the floor, you're still retaining some vestige of your low back curve. Pulling the head of the arm bone into the shoulder socket, the one that's holding the leg, holding the foot, so you're not straining the rotator cuff muscle, set of muscles. And straightening the other leg or keeping it at attention when it's bent. Then come into baby cradle. The hands hold the outside of the shin, the calf. And in this case, my left leg is bent, the left elbow pushes into the inner left thigh as the right hand pulls the ankle towards the shoulder, the right shoulder, the foot side of the leg. You can stretch the other leg straight if you want a little different, deeper stretch, or keep it bent. Come into full baby cradle pose. If you want the full wrap, holy guacamole, and breathe. Inhale, release the hands, pull the leg all the way across the body, snug the other leg up behind it into Harley. Drop your heels close to your bum, hands on the top of the knees, slide down the shins, take hold somewhere on towards the ankles or at the ankles, flex the feet, move the knees far enough away from the chest that you can recover your low back curve. Xiphoid to tailbone, engage the core. As you push the shins up into the hands towards the ceiling, towards parallel, the low back curve wants to disappear. So see if you can retain it and still push the hands, the legs into the hands. Try to relax the shoulders back so you're not doing this all with the shoulders. You're just holding on, but pulling the head of the arm bones back into the shoulder sockets, shoulder blades on the floor. Oh. Release the feet, stretch the arms in a T position, and drop the crossed legs over to, my left leg's on the top, so the leg unit goes over to the right. The right hand can help hold the leg in. Both shoulder blades on the floor. The upper body, the upper ribs are moving away from the bent legs, and the low belly is moving towards the bent leg side. And come back up to center. We'll do a bridge pose and then end with a supported fish or regular Shavasana. Bend the arms in robot position. Push the elbows down, lift the shoulder blades up a bit, snuggle them in, and then tack the head of the arm bones back down. Spread through the four corners of the feet, lift the toes. Isometrically, not really hard. If you pull the heels too far back towards your hips, you'll start to get a cramp in the hamstring. So just enough to engage, because you'll also be pulling in and pushing out. But you pull in so we can get a nice inner rotation of the thighs. Then as the tailbone lengthens, belly button drops, xiphoid to tailbone, you're pushing down and slightly out to lift up, snuggle the shoulder blades underneath you more, reset from the legs, press down, inner thighs move to soften the hips down a bit, and pull the heels in. Tailbone lengthens as you push down, up and in to expand. Keep the chin moving slightly away from the sternum. if you tuck the chin towards the sternum, it flattens your cervical vertebrae. And you want to honor the natural curve. So it's like the chin is moving away from the sternum as the sternum gets ever closer to the chin. And exhale, release. Hug the knees in. You rock side to side to massage the sacrum. And then set up for supported fish. That's where you have one block. It's a T block. The block that goes under your head can stay there. If it's comfortable for you, you can pull it even there. But this edge that's right in, sort of right at the bottom tip of the shoulder blades, right between the shoulder blades. And the other block rests in the back of the head, adjust it. Start with your knees bent so you can get a nice arc in the upper chest. Tailbone down. And then when that feels good, sliding the legs out, they're not relaxed. You're keeping the inner thighs towards the floor and the back of the thighs are pressing into the floor. So you can tilt the hips even more, roll more towards the frontmost and innermost edge of the sits bones. That's possible from this position. The feet are engaged like they're pressing against the wall. And once the legs are set, and if you start to move into a more restorative version of the pose, the legs can relax, but they don't flop out. If they flop out and you have to use too much work to keep them parallel, then slide a block on either side of your legs or a rolled blanket, something to help them stay neutral. You can remain in this position for final relaxation. I find it's a nice position for, particularly for a morning practice, because it's counter to what I'll probably be doing for much of the day if sitting is in on your to-do list today, or driving in the car too much. At any rate, it gives you this nice passive chest opener. But if this is not comfortable, then remove the blocks and slide onto your back and get comfortable into final relaxation. Wherever you are, the bones are heavy. The skin, muscles, tissues, organs soften. Swallow to soften the throat. Part your back teeth slightly. Part your lips slightly. The tongue is soft and curled in the mouth. Hollows of the cheeks soften back and down. Ears and temples soften. The eyeballs settle back into the cradle of your eye socket as all the muscles around your eyes soften. space between your eyebrows, the third eye center, your place of intuition, of knowing, just knowing, right in the center of the skull, right between the eyebrows, all the way into the center of the skull. Softens. Forehead and scalp soften. Follow your breath in and out. And you choose not to follow the soap opera of your thoughts, not following the narrative. Thoughts come up, and it's as simple and as difficult as saying, oh, thinking, and not following the thought. It will wander away and another thought will come up. You repeat the process. It's a simple process, but not always easy. Begin to deepen your breath, waking the body from the inside out. And as the breath becomes more energized, more full, the fingers and the toes naturally start to move, the hands and the feet. And it just naturally moves through the fingertips into the arms, stretching in any way that feels delicious. Bend your knees, gently roll to the side if you're still up on the blocks. Be careful how you land, and rest on your side for these few precious, beautiful moments of nowhere to go, nothing to do. And rolling a little more to the floor, slide your hands underneath you, press yourself up to a seated position, and sit well for the final few moments of meditation. Draw your palms together in front of your heart center. Namaste. Thank you, guys.